Today on the Idiot's Guide, we're talking about the invention that completely transformed human progress. From ENIAC to AI, the evolution of the computer puts the future at our fingertips. It started from room-sized machines crunching numbers, and now we have pocket-sized supercomputers and rising artificial intelligence. Computers have reshaped how we work, how we think, how we live. But where did it all begin? And how did we get from mechanical calculators to AI systems making decisions in real time? Oh, and here's something fun to think about. What if computers were never invented at all? In this episode, we'll explore the history of computers, their massive leaps in technology, and how they've changed the world forever. Let's boot this up. I'm your host, Adam Richardson, aka The Profit Hacker, and I'm joined by the man in charge, Mr. Joe Haslam. Welcome to the Idiot's Guide. So, before we had computers, we had a really archaic device that sits on the shelf up here behind you, the abacus. And it looks like the same thing that kids have, that's like you turn the little beads, and eventually they were like, you can make that so that it actually does like little twists and turns around each other, so you're like a little car moving the bead around the track and through this.
The little toy in every dentist's office everywhere?
Yes, yeah. That's really why they invented that, is for dentist offices. That's actually it, because I don't know about them in someone's home. If they did, I'd be worried they're a dentist. Yeah. But, like you have this element of like even mechanical, what is it? I don't even know what a mechanical calculator is. Is that like...
I should have brought mine in today, but you actually, so it's a little device, you clear it by lifting the thing, and then you take a little stylus and you push the numbers, and then you add it by...
Oh, really?
Yeah, and so it'll change the color, and then you go up, and that moves the tens place or the hundreds place. Yeah, I have one. I have everything that comes to computers, accounting, anything.
See, the most I think about is like the 10 key, whatever it is, where you're like...
Yep.
My mom used to do that in her bookkeeping, and so watching her sit there and like work on this ledger that's like 800 pages thick, and like going through, and like her hand is just doing this, and then she goes up and she was like, and then tapes it to the ledger, and then like carries on even more. It's crazy, but I'm like, okay.
A real accountant when they don't call that a calculator. That is called an adding machine.
An adding, that's right. You're right. Yep. Yeah.
So
I don't know.
Big bulky ones. I'm not an adding machine.
I'm definitely not an accountant. I'm like that thing that has it has a reel of tape and all that stuff.
Yep. That's an adding machine. Because it's backwards from a calculator.
And then you think like the punch card system, and I think that like the mechanical calculator, like you speak of, with like this little stylus and things like that, is very similar. The punch card system, I think about like old computers that, you'd hear them make that noise as they produce this little like card that comes out, and that card is actually like a piece of information. Yeah. I'm like, it's not even a kilobyte of information.
No, not even close.
It's not even a byte.
But you've got ones and zeros, and that's all you need.
Yeah, and so you have this like the invention of the ENIAC, which is basically just a giant, mathematical equation calculator in the 40s and 50s, and then ultimately it was a tool used in the military or other, I guess, scientific advancements. I don't know. To me, I think that they would use this kind of stuff in an element of decoding certain things in the military world. And a lot of, I'm like, even to this day, a lot of our, advancements that society experiences, the military is usually kind of the test dummy for that, or they're usually the experiment field where they're going to get the prototypes that they're working with before this is now a general public thing. And that's for safety reasons, obviously. You want a paid government employee to explode, not, an average citizen.
The first intranets, so the first connected computers like we understand them today. So back in the day, we had the LAN connections, local area networks. Mm-hmm. those were actually developed by the military as well.
Yeah.
In order to have communications across divisions, across groups and everything, so that there was clear-cut communication. So how we understand computers today, the whole internet system where everything's stored in the cloud, which is, the cloud isn't somewhere in the sky. It's sitting in an office in a refrigerated space that just has a bunch of little computers in it. That's the cloud. That's the real cloud. It's not sitting somewhere in space.
Man.
All of those connections that are feeding into this, that's the internet, is based on original military necessity.
Yeah. So you have this, then moves to your personal computer, and that, my family, like you said, yours in previous episodes was, computers were a normal thing. Yeah. I had, the oldest computer I remember our household having was an Atari computer, and it didn't have Oregon Trail on it. That was kind of one of those like nostalgic games. Ours was a Winnie the Pooh one, and you would have it would make the wind of the 1,000 acre woods or whatever acre woods it is, and you hear that. And then the story would shift you to something else, and then everyone would die of dysentery.
Even in Pooh, okay.
They just didn't have an original plot, so you're like, "Well, just go with." Just kidding, no. But something would go awry, and you'd be like, "Oh man, I'm not." You'd lose in this situation. Yeah. So very similar to Oregon Trail, but you have the original founding elements of personal computers, IBM, Apple. What was it back then? It was like Macintosh. Yeah. And I think we had a Toshiba computer, which is actually originally part of Macintosh. It was Mac Toshiba. And then Microsoft coming to the fold, early 90s. Obviously its generation was the 80s, but you're talking about its actual existence in a lot of operating systems. Yeah. Starting from probably late 80s, and now to this day that Microsoft is a standard, But you see that this evolution quickly has. Our last episode, we talked about television and how its birth was, back in the late 20s, 1920s. That is, we are in the late 20s, or early 20s of next.
We just
millennia.
hit the mid 20s.
The mid 20s. Okay, so. But you said nearly 100 years ago, you're talking the TV was created. This one wasn't even that. You're talking, 40s and 50s, you're playing with really basic, calculating models of this. Actual computers where you're talking about DOS menu item integration and going into the computer programming, the ones and zeros of computers, that's probably more 70s, 70s and 80s before it actually has any level of worthy traction outside of military.
Maybe late 60s.
Yeah. So in that environment, you're looking at this going, man, I that's not a long time. That's 50 years of computer development, where the other one's almost 100 years. So in half the time, computers have advanced exponentially faster in what they're doing to today's society. So, and to now, you talk about even way back in the day, you talk about Apollo moon landing on Mars, well, not moon landing, but not Mars, but Mars rover. Okay. Mars rovers are, you're sending imagery all the way across the universe, Look, stop looking at me like I'm speaking languages that you don't understand. All the way across our solar system.
No. It's the next planet over. It's essentially a tin can with a rope talking to your neighbor. in comparison.
Why do you have to minimize this feat of
JWST?
mankind to this little, like,
compared to the
hello, can you
JWST
hear
that
me over there?
is reshaping physics as we know it, the foundations of the universe, all the components that go into everything. That's the JW. That's the messages that are coming across our universe, not tin can with a rope from the next planet over.
I took a picture of a rock today. Look at this rock. I found tire tracks. They're mine. Sorry, they're mine.
I mean, in comparison, I mean, it's not across the universe. It's not across the solar system. It's
fine.
the next door neighbor.
Whatever. Okay, I'm giving computer technology too much credit, apparently. So the fact that, let's zero in on something besides Mars. Let's talk about what you were just talking about, where they're discovering black hole and elements of the universe that is just mind-boggling, defies physics as we know it. And so it's one of those things that's like, for us to be able to produce something that will reach out and view those things, and it's because of computer technology that we can produce that stuff. That's what I think is the most impressive part of that, is like, we go from mathematical equations and like, that's where it started. Like, can we get this to say 2 + 2 is 4? And how many ways can we explain that into a computer so that it can do that? Still 2 + 2 is 4, but still always do that equation correctly.
Yeah.
And then, it's one of those, I don't know, like, to me, that's really a basic idea, but then you're going, now we're seeing on the edge of universe that we know, exploring things that boggle our mind. And that's because of, this same thinking about how do we get this to do a math equation that's so simple for us, to now, how do we understand what in the world we just saw,
Yeah.
So this idea that now our world is kind of a new economy of digital operations, business operations, everything that we do has catapulted into a digital sphere that is, a lot of times, even the conversation about the need for brick and mortar isn't even there, because you can exist entirely online other than your actual physical being, And then you go to Matrix and your world is blown, like,
Yeah, we're not going there.
you're just a battery for a machine. That's it. So
That would be the most inefficient battery that has ever existed. And we've talked about some pretty inefficient batteries on this channel before.
That's true. Frogs are more efficient than humans. Okay. Anyway, before we process the next point, take a second to hit that like button and subscribe. It's a simple click for you and a giant leap for keeping the podcast growing. Drop a comment if you want. That's you. You can do that too. What's your earliest memory of using a computer? What kind of things did you, what kind of things, like I said, I played on an Atari game where, Winnie the Pooh died of dysentery. So,
A few mixed memories there.
Anyway, hit that like button, subscribe, and we'd love to hear from you. So, okay, now we move into an era where, you see this continual progression, and it's almost aggressive. You hit about 2000, and you have two real powerhouses that have really dominated. I want to say this. The home personal computer experience is dominated by two powerhouses mainly. Now, there's lots of other options out there that you could explore and custom systems, but most operating systems, there's about three options. Okay, one is Microsoft, one is Apple, and the other is Linux. And Linux is like, I don't know.
It's the open source option.
It's an option if you don't want to pay for anything. Like, it's great. It does its job.
Yep.
But it's one of those things where you're like, you see this this now it's almost like on like a monopoly in the development of this, where you have this tug of war between who's going to be the greatest, instead of where it came from with this ability to do, great things in the sphere. It's now just going like, my computer's better than your computer. You're flexing on each other. But it also, I think, has created a competitive market to continue to be competitive, which has resulted in really, really high performance tech. You're talking about, my son plays video games, and he's looking at consoles that, the video game world for computers is insane. And the cost for those computers is nuts, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, it just, like, oh, it's just this little amount. It's only like $4,500 for this computer console that, you basically, the characters will jump out on your lap and have a battle in front of you. You're like, I don't know why I have to do that, but why is it so much? So much so that the graphics on a computer have exceeded that of anything on television. They've gotten to the point now where they make the monitors for for computers stronger than, and the video graphics that are coming out of the computers stronger than what you would see on an average television. So, if you plug it into a television, you're not going to get the same graphics that you would get on your monitor. Yeah. That's how crazy it is. Like, and that's just the image. When you're talking about processing speed, when you're looking at major, you talk about crunching numbers. Okay, you're an accountant, and you think that, oh, look, I'm going to throw all of this information at you like this. It's pages upon pages and upon pages, and within about 30 seconds, it's going to spit something back out of a collected summary of what you just did. That's really impressive.
Yeah, it processes. Now, the processing that I do, I have to use a gaming laptop in order to get it to process the information that I have, and it's still really slow.
Yeah.
That's how much data that I'm processing. The level of processing that I do is something that no human can do in the same amount of time. And it's all reading that data. It's just going back and forth and being able to process that amount of information. The speed at which it can collect and present information is just astronomical. And they still go faster because that's not even a supercomputer.
Yeah.
When you talk supercomputers, these things are just processing massive amounts of data in such a short amount of time because of all the components that are in it to be able to process so quickly. They're usually in like super cooled rooms because of all the heat from all the information data that's going on to, with heat loss and just massive cool stuff that these supercomputers are able to do.
Well, and then you think about the idea of a microchip. And the development from there, that those are the elements that really run computers, they're the brains of computers. And those microchips are really well sought after. Well, you think that microchips in computers, also now cars are coming with that level of, computing. Smartphones have the same technology in them. So, the development, what's early or late 50s, early 60s, you have the initial kind of, creation of a microchip. And it's just gotten to the point where they're literally microscopic chip. It's so small that you're talking, originally they're the size of your hand. That's a microchip. You're like, well, that's okay. That's good. When the machine that, is doing math equations takes up a trailer park, and then now you're like, but this can do it now. That's a pretty good downsize, Yeah. And now you're going, well, now I can have almost the same level of entertainment value, micro computing, access, communication, all that stuff. And the whole thing fits in the palm of my hand.
I remember a video game that I played called Castles 2. It was not a complex game. By standards of today, it is as simple as it comes.
Castles, okay.
In order to install it on my computer, it came on 5 3.25 floppy disks.
Oh, man.
So you had to put in one, let it install, and then it would pop up a message on the screen, put in the next disk. So you'd pop that one out, pop the next one in, and then take that one out, pop the next one in.
I may have to
disks.
actually coach my editor on providing a picture of a floppy disk because my editor isn't old enough to even know what that is. So
he's actually looking it up right now. But I mean, those were the small disks that were actually not floppy. We still call them floppy because we were used to the 5 1/8,
which was floppy.
And I mean,
now it's these little hard like disc cassettes.
yeah. So we used to call them. You know what generation you grew up with in because we didn't call them 5 1/4 or 5 1/8 or 3 1/4. We called them A discs or B discs.
Yeah.
Because on your computer, you would have drives.
You had an A drive.
And so
B
your
drive.
C drive was your computer drive.
Yep.
Because the A drive was for the 5 or for the 3 1/4, and the B drive was for the 5 1/8. And so they were B's and A's.
Well, and even like moving into discs when you start doing not just floppies, but now you have CD discs when you the data on CDs, and then ultimately that was kind of why nowadays you have things like MP4 or MP3. That is a digital signature of a song that used to be on a recording track. Yep. I have lots of those where they're recordings of me that are on tapes, like cassette reels, and it's now digitally transferred over to a library online, and it's such a small amount of data that it takes just for one little song. It's insane to me that, you know, like we had such huge items, and that everything that we do in data and information can be brought down to the tiniest little byte of information.
And that same game, that Castles 2 game that took up 5 of these discs, we now have those little flash drives, you know, that can be incorporated into little sticks or whatever, or you've got the little SD cards that game wouldn't even take up 1% of the data capacity on one of these little SD cards.
I have a jump drive in my office that's a terabyte, and it is literally smaller than my pinky, and but I don't trust it because I've had it fail on me. Yeah. But you know, if I need to keep a paper document and move it from here to there, absolutely, I won't. I'm not going to trust a terabyte worth of data on that thing at this point, because it has failed me. But just the fact that I have that at my disposal, like I have my computer that I'm worried about the space because I downgraded the size storage to, you know, like it has 250 gigs or something like that. So it's not very big. And it's you know, it's this idea that we have this astronomical amount of information now that can just be stored in tiny little components, but it's so much storage that it can hold. And that's because of computing power that we can do that. We can minimize a phone book worth of stuff, a library of everything. That's why even Google Tech is what it is, because it has such a resource of information that we've stored all available to itself at this point. It's disgusting.
There's a great scene in Futurama where they show the, I think they call it the library. That holds
the library.
I think that's what it is. It holds all of the universe's knowledge, and so they show a shot of it. It's just 2 discs in the library. Just
are they floppies?
Just CDs. Okay. CDs sitting on little stands, because all that data is just so compressible to be able to be accessed, and just the ability to share that information, to get that information. That's how we can have the cloud, because we're compressing that data so much that it can sit in an environmentally controlled room to be able to access that information from anywhere. It's just amazing what that kind of what that has allowed us to do.
Well, I think what's cool about this is the fact that now, with all of this information being, you know, added to constantly. We have different resource libraries that everybody commonly goes to. This has now birthed something in our society. We have an episode that we do talk about this in general, about the truth about what AI is.
And what we have right now is not AI.
But in the sense of a language model, and what they have coined it AI, but it's a language model, is really in depth. It's doing a tremendous job of, in my opinion, it's like you talk. It's mixed. Everybody has kind of a different perspective about this. You can have something that complements your skill set. You can have something that you rely entirely on and it replaces your skill set, which is very dangerous.
Does it replace your skill set? Because the person that's receiving that information I'm
not, like, let me finish what I'm saying. I'm going to speak against that, Joe. I'm just saying that there are people who are like, I'm sold on just this. I'm going to lean heavily on this, which basically makes you perpetuate an error in the language model, because it's regurgitating information at that point. So you're just chewing the same food someone else ate.
Hey, chew this sandwich
that's
for
a really
me.
gross descriptive on how it is, but that's the truth.
That is what it is.
Okay. So, but now you have, honestly, like, things that are AI powered in essence, even in the sense of saying, my home, I can have a communication with my device in my home. I can ask it to turn lights on, and it turns lights on. Now, I have to kind of coach it through certain things, but if I want it to play a song on my player that I subscribe to, I can ask it to do that, and it will find the song. It will play that artist exactly what I'm looking for. So
it's a voice-controlled search engine.
The idea, though, is that there is a core group of Luddites that are against this situation.
I am not a Luddite. I am very much.
This is vindicating for me, because the first couple episodes in this series,
I am not a Luddite.
You were like, look at this guy. You look like a Luddite.
I very much am in favor of true artificial intelligence. I have had to rename my definition of this type of intelligence to computer or robotic intelligence, because of how much the marketing of these AI companies has demeaned the meaning of artificial intelligence. Because it's not artificial intelligence at all. It is not real robotic intelligence. Real computer intelligence is an ability to learn and grow, to develop, to change, to overcome its base programming to be something else, to take in information from multiple sources and be able to put it together, not simply regurgitate something that's already there.
So
these large language models are not AI. Go back 20 years to see what people defined artificial intelligence as.
We have 3 minutes left in our episode.
And it is not this. They have changed the definition of AI in order to market a product that is a glorified search engine.
Okay.
This is not technological advancement. This is
for the sake of blood pressure, let's use a different word going forward. I know that you're staring at the notes, and the notes, it's AI everywhere, and I understand. It is an unfortunate, frustrating descriptive for something that isn't accurate. It's utilized and marketed like that. And so it's like saying, instead of getting me a facial tissue, you get me a Kleenex. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean that.
No, it's like going to a fancy restaurant and ordering a steak, and they bring you a piece of dog meat. That is what calling this stuff AI is like.
Now, I would say that the level of language model they're operating in at this point is impressive, okay? For what it is doing and what it assists in doing, it is helpful in a lot of different ways. I think it also comes with, concern and caution that a lot of people are trying to do. But because the market is now becoming more competitive, there's been some new people in the race that just recently released some newer language models that are ruffling feathers. You have a little bit more of a competitive nature, much like Apple and Microsoft had to, they're trying to climb the ladder of creation.
Theirs were real computers. This is not real AI.
All I'm talking about
And
is
all these
if you
these
talk about
large
software development, generally speaking, okay, regardless of whether it's AI or anything else, if you're talking about the development of better editing software or better audio software or better accounting software, the level of competition always thrives innovation. And so in this sense, even in that, if you don't want it to stay where it is and just be a stagnant pool of regurgitated information, this is how it works. This is the origin aspect of where it can actually become robotic intelligence. But right now, right now, it is a base language model like your dots are on a piece of paper.
No. This is taking it down this is taking it down the wrong path. By following this and calling it AI, we are misleading the entire research. And this is coming from someone who researches artificial intelligence.
Okay, but
from a perspective of human neurological processes, neurocognitive development, as well as from a mathematical standpoint. A computational, mathematical, algorithmic process to mimic human neurocognitive development and processing. This is in no way taking us down that path. This is technology that we've had for over 20 years. It's called a search engine. All they're doing is they are putting a bunch of cheaply paid individuals to filter information into this so that there is more data for the search engine to spit out. That's all this is. All we're doing is dumbing down the system and taking advantage of people who need money to be able to put this data in for super cheap and calling it AI.
If you want to know a little bit more about this passionate description that we're talking about, we do actually have an episode. I will link it at the top of this. But for the sake of this episode and the development and evolution of supercomputer capacity, the industry has leaned in this direction to utilize it as whatever resource it's using it for. And in that sense, it has brought to the table a new discussion, and in that discussion is how do we move forward with this and let it be something that doesn't cripple what we're doing as our innovation or anything like that. It's not necessarily like to the point where we go, are we divided? Let me say this. The episode is about computers. Let's stay in that lane, okay? But what Joe is, a big part about that is there is some big questionable elements in the tech that they're talking about, the language models that they're using, and they're giving far too much credit to the model itself for what innovation can be done with our computers that we've seen over our entire lifetime, at least, to see how it's evolved to be some really, really powerful elements to this stuff and working at lightning speeds where, even when you think about uploading a game off 5 disks and when you're trying to build this thing, how long, I remember just the actual CDs and how long it would take to do an install of a program that was probably 90 megabytes, and you're like, okay, there's 8 CDs and 90 megabytes of information, and all this is word processing, like Word Perfect. Remember Word Perfect?
Yep.
So like before there was Microsoft Word, it creates an issue where you kind of go, what crosses a line? What is an ethical line that we may be struggling with in these innovations going forward? Is that fair enough to say?
I'm just going to keep quiet.
Hey Hey guys, let's talk about another system that needs an upgrade, your financial future. Our financial empowerment membership is here to give you the tools and insights you need to take control of your money. Whether you're looking to break free from financial stress, build wealth, or make smarter money moves, we've got you covered. Click the link in the description and join today and start optimizing your financial game. Because just like computers revolutionized technology, smart money habits can revolutionize your future. So what if we didn't have computers, Joe?
The world would definitely be a lot slower, a lot smaller, and definitely a lot less stuff being done.
I mean, I think there's a consensus here on a lot of these episodes where these are elements of communication. You know, I get my news via email by different threads that I follow from different email or like news story sources, like just like a newspaper, now it comes in my email. And I enjoy that. But if I didn't have that, you know, I wouldn't know what's going on. I'd be uninformed, you know. And sometimes that can have really catastrophic results, because if I'm trying to make something of my life, I rely on key information in our society in order to continue to progress and be relevant in society. And, you know, without that, I don't get that information. But then also, you know, maybe there's video games. My son likes to play video games on there. So how does that work? And then how does, you know, like what evolves if it's not computers? You know, there's video game consoles are little computers. So you have a lot of different things that the way that they behave, the way that we function, cars have computers. There's a lot of things that have computers in them. And if we didn't have that computing power in our society, I feel like we would have significantly less progress in a lot of things.
Oh, yeah.
You know? So it's safe to say, I believe, that computers really kind of make life easier. And if we didn't have them, we'd be screwed. Yeah. You know, granted, like in the era of that they didn't have computers, it was just a different time. Now I can't even fathom not having a computer. And because I carry, like, I can't go, I have a computer in my pocket. I can't leave my house without that. I would choose no pants over my not having my little phone. Okay. You give me a choice. Everyone else would be like, please pants, but you know, whatever.
Yeah.
You know, you get the point, Joe, the point. So let's do a quick system check. Quick defrag. I don't think we even do that anymore, but of today's discussion. We covered how computers went from massive room-sized machines to the supercomputers and microchips powering our world today. Then we explore this language model race and how it's pushing the boundaries of what computers can do. And finally, we imagined a world without computers. Definitely not a reality most of us would want to live in at all. Honestly, you think about, you know, how much we take for granted because of the fact of how much computer we use all the time. So here's a question. Where do you think computers will take us next? What's the next thing? Where do you think language models or AI or anything else that you want to call it, or, you know, or robotic technology, where is that taking us next? And, you know, what's the greatest tool? What's the greatest challenge we're going to face in that? Drop your thoughts in the comments. It's time. I'm messing it up today. Time for Jokes with Joe.
All right, here we go. Okay. What do you call a cow with no legs?
Oh, I know this one.
Oh, you do?
I'm a dad, okay?
All right. For those of you that don't know, it's ground beef. Didn't stump him on that one.
All right, we have reached the end of our show for today. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Life's too short. So keep laughing and learning. And remember, idiots have way more fun.
Check your shoes.